mute that so we don't have the feedback there. Brilliant. Two screen operation going on here. Welcome everybody. I see everyone's coming back, and welcome to our last session. So our last, but by no means least, ladies, our last session, which is our panel on lockdown 2.0. What does it mean for events and our mental health? I am delighted to be joined by the lovely Rita Chandarana from Eventologists, Kate Plowright from Selling Savvy.
Hello.
And Charli Briggs from Eventure. Morning, guys. It's still morning? Yeah, it is. It's 11 o'clock.
Just about, yeah.
Yes. How are you all doing?
Good.
Right, thanks. I never know how to answer that question at the moment.
I know. Shall I ask you twice? How are you really doing?
Yeah, how you really doing? No, start crying. No.
Yeah. Which probably actually brings us nicely into the first question that I wanted to ask you, ladies, and the reason why I invited you all to the stage with me here this morning. You've all got some amazing stories from this year with everything that has happened, and I thought it would be great for, we'll start with Rita first, and then Kate, and then Charli, kind of, you know, just give the audience just an overview of what your year has looked like this year, both from a professional and a personal perspective, and kind of how you've, for me, from an outsider looking at you ladies and what you've achieved this year, how you've achieved what you've done this year, which has been pretty awesome, I have to say. Rita, do you want to?
Wow, yeah. So funny enough, my year, or my 2020 year, started with a real roller coaster of emotions and incidents. So that they kind of started, my COVID experience almost started in January. So, you know, various things were happening. And then I was, you know, dealing with house moves and a real sort of incident that I had to go through, a real, you know, real grief. And then suddenly COVID in February, obviously, because we're in the live events industry, COVID kind of struck. So I was dealing with all these little things personally, and then COVID struck. So, you know, little by little, you know, lots of customers started saying, there's something happening. And so by February, I was pretty much closed down. And obviously with that comes a real sort of worry, because, you know, as event people, we're so used to controlling life that actually you're not used to an external influence coming in and controlling you. So I, you know, literally everything shut down, and then suddenly had to go back to, okay, some really old learning that I started with wellbeing, to go, there's some voice. I realized very quickly, voices in my head going, this is worrying, this is scary. But actually, you know, looking back at, you know, the year, and I always say there's always a blessing behind the curse. It's actually been the most phenomenal year whilst I'm dealing with things. And I've actually feel that having the space allowed me to deal with them properly. They're resolved, they're put to bed in terms of many things. Other things, you know, learning how to pivot. You just move so quickly. You have to move on everything so quickly, and actually having that space to be able to go, okay, this is what I need to do, and clarity is what COVID has given me, because I am clear at every step of the way now what I need to do, because actually all I've had is the time to think about my next action, rather than being in a whirlwind of events and doing things. And sometimes you actually forget to take a breath and focus on what you need to do. So yes, a big list of achievements this year, personally and professionally, but also tackling those demons has been, and like some really serious emotions has been my year.
Yeah, I like what you said there about taking a breath, just taking a breath and stopping. That's really nice. Such a positive story, Rita. Kate, do you want to? How's your year been? From my view, it's been awesome, lovely. But
thanks. Do you know, I feel like this is the platform where I can really be honest. And everybody says, "Oh, you're doing so well. You're everywhere," which is very, very good marketing on our part. But you know, internally, we're like ducks, as everybody is. The year's been crazy. we went into lockdown, and lockdown number 1, my husband was furloughed. We have a 2-year-old son, and so my whole working life for 2.5, nearly 3 years had been struggling with childcare, trying to grow a business, not having enough hours in the day, didn't want to increase nursery because couldn't afford it, not making any money because didn't have the time, standard mum issues, I think. When we went into lockdown number 1, my husband was furloughed and I had more childcare than I've ever had. So I was like, you just stay downstairs and I'm just going to work. And started writing content and everything, and suddenly had time to speak to LinkedIn connections that I'd never usually be like, yeah, I'll entertain a phone call. I can't see a possibility of us working together, but let's have a chat. So I had more time to be able to do that. And it was always my business plan to grow the team and do it like a franchise model. But that was supposed to be in 5 years' time. But I just found the right people. And I was like, if I don't do it now, I just have to go for it. And I went into that process and contracting process, and I kept saying to myself, you're going to make mistakes with this. This is way earlier than you thought it would be, bringing on a team, but I've just got to try it because these women are amazing, so supportive, and if it's not going to happen now, it's never going to happen. So luckily it's worked out. They're great, but that was and I feel like I've been very lucky that I haven't had too many demons over the last 6 months, because it's been busy and we've been growing traction and it's been really good fun. But now lockdown 2.0 is here and don't know what's going on. It's like, I don't know why it's so much harder second time round. My husband's at work, that's probably why.
Why?
Yeah. But I've seen quite a few polls saying that everybody's finding it a bit tougher, so I feel like I've had a pretty good year, and now we'll see.
Yeah, we've got a poll for the audience actually coming up. We're going to ask you guys out in the audience, kind of which are you finding 2.0? I keep calling it 2.0.
Yeah.
Harder or easier than 1.0? So yes, I'll ask that question. Awesome. Again, so relatable, and that mummy struggle. Lovely.
Yeah. Especially because
exactly
I've relied on my mum a lot for childcare, and she's 71, so we don't want to give it to her. So you're trying to do right by your family, making sure that she's safe, but then also being pulled in all directions for the business. And then also you just feel like I'm not doing everything 100%. I'm not doing the business how I want it to be, spending much time on it. But then I'm spending a day with Fred and sitting on my laptop for an hour, which isn't great being a mum. So I think it's pretty across the board. Everyone feels the same.
Yeah, I think everyone's in the same boat. That's the most important message that we can send out there, is that everybody is in the same boat. This isn't an ideal situation for so many of us, but we're mustering through and we're doing the best we can. And I think that's, my mum always taught me when I was growing up, that the only thing that anybody can expect from you is that you do your best, and the only thing that you should expect from yourself is that you do your best. And those words have always stayed with me, and I say that to so many people. We can only do our best, and that's all that can be expected of us.
Yeah.
So, but you've done so well this year, Kate.
Thank
so inspiring
you
to watch how Selling Savvy is going to grow. And the same for you, Charli Briggs. How's your going, darling?
Yeah, it's had its ups and downs. I'd say I'm actually on the up now. But back in May, I was made redundant from full-time employment, which I thought was my, career for the foreseeable future. I absolutely loved that job, and when it happened, this was quite a bad point. I started doubting myself. I felt quite lost. I felt alone, even though I had a good support network. I had lots of contacts. I just felt really alone. And then, in true sort of what we're all like in the event industry, we are problem solvers. I thought, right, what is it that I loved about that role that I can look for in my next position? And I thought, well, I love working with people. I love working with clients, with freelancers, and the company that I was working for, it's no longer trading. So why don't I try and do this myself? And hadn't thought of this before, but COVID's done some crazy things to us all. So we weighed up the risks and we thought, you know, let's give it a go, my husband and I. And it was slow to begin with, but it gave me the opportunity to sort of do the recruitment of the staffing, the freelancers, and get to know them very well. And then the last couple of months has really, really lifted off. We're supporting on virtual events. We've got some elf work coming up now. We know that retail's reopening. And it's just, I've achieved more than I thought I was going to achieve this year, especially in this pandemic that we're in. And then just on a personal level as well, I've got more of a work-life balance than I've ever had, from working for myself and also from working from home. And I also, at the beginning of the year, set out to do a marathon, which I still have done, despite COVID. Even though the live event didn't happen, I still did it. So I feel really proud of myself, actually.
I feel like you need a clap.
Yeah.
Done. Absolutely amazing story.
Yeah, it's fabulous. I think it's all three stories are really inspiring in terms of what you ladies have achieved this year with your own businesses. So looking at three female business owners in our industry that have achieved, you really have achieved so much, and you should be incredibly proud of yourselves. But one of the things, the next question I wanted to ask, and we haven't got a poll for the audience in terms of what I mentioned, is that whole question. So should we do the poll first and see what the audience say? So Arjun, if we can bring up that poll, which is we're going to ask you now, so how have you found lockdown 2 easier or harder than lockdown 1? So bring that poll up there. Maybe we can bring that up on screen. We can bring that answer up on the screen. Is that going to work?
The drum roll.
Yeah. I know, exactly.
I'm really interested to hear.
We can't see the poll, so Arjun, you might have to just let us know what the answer was for the poll, and then we can. If people found it easier or harder, you should be able to see the answers on there.
Suspense.
I know, exactly.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I got some answers for the poll.
Yeah.
57% of the people found it easier.
57% easier. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And 29% of the people found it harder.
Okay.
And about 14% found it the same.
Found it about the same. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting result. Ladies, how about you? How have you found it?
I'm the complete opposite. But I think actually it does depend on your personal circumstance. I think I'm the opposite because, as I said, my husband was at home, so I didn't have to. I wasn't being pulled in the guilty direction of looking after my son, which obviously I love to do. But I had just had more time, whereas now it's kind of all on me, and so yeah, I guess it depends on people's circumstances. I feel like I've learned a lot as well from the first lockdown.
I think I would say the same. Well, actually, I found lockdown 1 harder simply because of everything else I was going through. And funny enough, some of the lessons that I've learned during lockdown 1 really helped me in lockdown 2. So just things like not using heavy language. So this morning, actually, great example, my husband decided he's got sciatica and he just said, right, my leg's killing me. And I was like, do you mean killing or do you mean hurting? And he went, oh yeah, hurting.
Yeah.
Actually using really light language. So not saying this is really hard, this is really stressful, because that's where I started off the year saying, oh, this is terrible, this is awful. And now we probably don't use that same language in the house. So actually I feel lighter, but also understanding. And one of the things that Charli raised was, actually you raised, that not striving for this real perfection, because actually sometimes you don't need to be, or actually COVID has definitely shown me that you don't really need to be perfect everywhere, because you have to move so fast that you're never going to, if you're trying to achieve perfect, you're never going to get things out. So actually, by getting almost there and launching it, the perfection can then happen around the edges whilst you're doing it. So I don't feel so bad about being a bit fuzzy around the edges. And I think the big thing is I've just let things flow a bit. So letting go, COVID's controlled us, the government's controlled us, the fact that everything's shut down has controlled us. So actually just going, okay, I'm just going to let every day just come, and I'll deal with every day when it happens, rather than worrying about yesterday, worrying about what's going to happen next week, next year. Are my family going to be okay? Well, actually, let's worry about it tomorrow if it happens.
Yeah,
that's really helped me this year, and in lockdown too.
Yeah, I like your analogy you use, allowing yourself to be fuzzy around the edges. That's really nice. We need to tweet that, don't we? Allow yourself to be fuzzy around the edges. Kate, what about you? Have you been fuzzy around the edges?
I should be more fuzzy, probably. I think I definitely strive for that perfection all the time, but I also strive for it really quickly. My colleague said to me the other day, I thought I was a quick worker, and she's like, then I started working with you. I'm like, boo, 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 boo. But that is my own internal pressure. And this lockdown, I have said to myself, just calm down. If you don't do it in the next hour, what's going to happen? Nothing. Nobody's even going to know. So I've given myself, tried to give myself a bit more of a break in terms of that. Which is helping, which is definitely helping.
Yeah, I like that as well, kind of giving yourself a break. That's really, I think that's probably one of the biggest things that we've learned this year, isn't it? That ability to just cut yourself a bit of slack, give yourself a break, take a step back, breathe, all that kind of stuff. Charlie, what about you?
Yeah, I've done the same. I think lockdown 1, I was a lot more hard on myself. I was forcing myself to try and keep busy every single hour of every single day, whether that was webinars or reading books or anything educational. This time I have, we're in the darker months now, we're going towards winter, and there's not as much daylight. And I think for me, I've been taking time in the day while it's still light to go out, because for me, I need to see the light, not just through the window. I want to be outside. And then I can log on later and do my work, as long as I get what I need to get done. And that's really helped me. I've sort of given myself a bit more freedom and a bit more time to take a step back. And like Rita said earlier, just to breathe a bit more. That's definitely helped.
Yeah, definitely. And being active and moving and getting outside, like you said, in the fresh air is really, really important, isn't it? We can't talk about it enough. So lockdown then 2.0, we have had a start date. Woohoo! 2nd December, apparently we'll be able to hold events again for up to 4,000 within a new tiered system. So I suppose from a realist perspective, what do you guys think, from an employers and freelancers perspective, what the people need to start doing right now, but also how realistic is that return to events from the 2nd of December? Really, it's nice that we've been given it, but how what do you guys think? How realistic is that start date?
Who's going to dare to talk?
Yeah, that says it all, doesn't it? I personally think that we've, especially the live events industry, has lost a lot of confidence, and until customers aren't confident, and there's a lot of there's lots of agencies, there's lots of end customers who are saying we're not coming back to work for another 3 to 6 months. I think it's going to be the vaccine that will probably spur more events on. So actually working on reduced capacity is something that we are preparing for, as someone who's majority sort of live. But I also think that virtual is part of, obviously going to be part of our life. So therefore, it's made the live events industry a little bit you know, many people have realized actually we're dispensable because there's something called the computer that's taken over us, and that whilst it's not the same as face to face, you know, it's happened. So actually, as freelancers, as employers, we and just as events people, I really do believe that we just need to kind of change our focus, being much more customer driven, much more you know, we need to understand the customer objectives a lot more, because they will be making a choice going, actually, should this be face to face or can this be virtual? So as business people, we need to be stronger, sharper, better, but also at the same time, for us to do that, we need to make sure that employees and freelancers, we're quite quick to go, well, that they're a freelancer, but actually they're the people who are turning the cogs in much of our industry. So looking after them like an employee will be essential. But then equally, they need to look at, when we give a piece of business, they need to look at that business as their business, because it's only going to work when you're working together. And I think that is my kind of interpretation of what's going to be happening next.
You're finishing little bits with some amazing sound bites, Rita. Only work if we work together. I love it. Me personally, I think there's a place for both virtual and live. And that's from someone who's been in events for 23 years. You know, we've been having this debate about virtual events for 10 years. And it's kind of, I think it's taken this year to give us a boot up the backside, I think, really, as an industry, because we are behind other industries in terms of our innovations. So we needed it. Charli, you're nodding at me. Do you agree?
Yeah, I was very against like the virtual event thing. I think like many of us, we're just like, no, we're just going to go back to live events. It'll all be just as it was. And I think with working on having staffing at virtual events recently, I've seen sort of how good they can be, how good virtual events can be in bringing people together around the world. So, you know, with COVID, businesses' budgets have been stripped. So, you know, there may not be as much of an opportunity for people to travel to international events. It could be that, you know, we have an element of virtual at all events moving forwards, or where it's suitable. And people from the Far East can attend our events without having to actually travel here and, you know, spend a whole week traveling and whatnot. They can actually just log on for the sessions they're interested in. So I think live events, nothing will take away from that connection that we can build with people in a live environment. But at the same time, it's opening up much opportunity for people all over the world. And, you know, you can get new leads from people that you may not have met otherwise. So I think it's great. I definitely think, you know, like you say, there's place for both, for sure.
Definitely. And Kate, what do you think?
I'm from a hotel background, so it breaks my heart that virtual is, it doesn't break my heart. It worries me for the hotel industry that it's suddenly become so popular. And however, I am a big fan of a virtual event, I have to say. In our training that we pivoted within 2 days to turn everything virtual, now actually works really well, sometimes a bit better virtually, simply because I was running monthly events for 50 people standing up, doing presentations, and people would sit there and be like, okay, yeah, any questions? Nobody would put their hand up. Whereas when I run it virtually, people are in the chat box chatting, asking questions, nobody's nervous. So suddenly the events flow a lot better. Anyway, I should stop plugging virtual now. We are doing work with hotels and venues, though, on how they can make virtual and hybrid lucrative for them, because they suddenly have a new enormous market, the virtual event market, that's a competition for them, which they've never really had. I mean, they have had vaguely, but they've certainly never come up against it, certainly never been in their comp set, as it were. And it's similar to what you said, Rita, it's all about this, from a sales, with the sales head on, it's all about proving that the experience you're going to get just cannot be copied in a virtual world, and that's what the hotels are having to plug at the moment, and kind of prove their worth, because it can be a lot more expensive to have it in person. So it's a hard graft and a long road, I think, to get to that point.
Yeah. And for me on that point, because I spent 17 years in venues as well, so it's for my perspective on that, to back up what you're saying, it's an opportunity for me for venues to innovate, because again, it's hotels and venues looking at that traditional meeting and conference model. Some people that still DDR packages and stuff like that, their industry has kind of moved on from that kind of traditional conference meeting and event model. So it's,
think, Helen,
is it the Lancaster that's got the virtual,
the Royal Lancaster,
that's got the virtual studio. So turn one of your meeting rooms into a virtual studio, and the business that you will get from that, and you can offer it as a space that would back up a hybrid event. So you could have a live event and virtual elements of that live event running at the same time.
That's exactly what we've been working with clients on doing, learning about hybrid, because a lot of, and I put my hand up, however long years ago, I didn't know what hybrid was, probably a year ago, to be fair. So there's people in those hotels that need to make money. Everything's changed, so we're bridging that gap between this is what it is, this is what you can do, this is what you need to look for in an AV company, because you'd have a supplier list, but realistically, do you know who they are, what they do? Probably not really in depth. So I think it's vital. And what you said, Helen, about how the industry hasn't really changed that much in 20 odd years, and the sales process as well hasn't changed that much. So we have all had a bit of a shake up.
We have, yeah. We're going to ask the audience now, actually. So if we can start that poll, I'm going to ask you guys, how confident are you? Oh, I can see the poll. So how confident are you that that events can restart on the 2nd of December? So if everybody can answer that question, so either very confident, mildly confident, not confident at all, or not sure. So if everybody can answer that. I'm mildly confident. How are you guys?
Surely it depends on the vaccine.
It does, yeah. Let's see if we can bring the results up on the screen. If we can't, once everyone's voted. If we can't, then maybe Arjun can jump on again and give us those percentage figures in terms of how people are feeling in terms of those. Exactly what Rita said at the very beginning. It's that confidence, isn't it? So even though we've been given the go ahead, it's that confidence. And also as well, bearing in mind that the supply chain for our industry has pretty much been decimated. So it's our ability as well to be able to, those little AV companies and event producers and freelancers and stuff that you worked with traditionally. Although, yeah. So Eventologists is still there, but it's having a look at the damage that's been done to the supply chain. Have you got those results, Sergeant?
Yeah, I've got it. So about 56% of the people are not confident at all that they're going to start at 2nd of December.
56% not confident at all.
Yeah. So 22.
What was the percentage for confident?
11% are very confident, 22% are mildly confident, and 11% are not sure.
Not sure. So really, kind of exactly what we've just been talking about, isn't it, ladies? That as an industry, then pretty much we're not confident at all, are we, in terms of a start? So I suppose it bring it on to, because I'm trying to think. Do we have it? Okay, there we go. We'll do this one. It's kind of, how is this going to impact on our mental health then and well-being? Because obviously confidence is a big thing when it comes to mental health and well-being. And then we'll go to some questions from the audience as well. So if you've got any questions that you want to pose to the ladies, kind of pop some questions in the Q&A there. But yeah, let's have a chat about this for a couple of minutes then. So as we talked about how the industry has got that boot up the backside that it's probably needed for a very long time. But is the industry going to be changed for the better? Are we going to go back to old ways? And that mental health perspective, what does this kind of mean? Bearing in mind that if we were to put that percentage onto the industry, and we're saying that 56% of the industry are not confident and returning to live events. Shall we discuss, ladies? Shall I go? I'll go to Kate first. Do you want to go first?
I think, to answer your first question, I don't think that the industry is ever really going to be the same. I think that in some positives, to be fair, as well as perhaps some negatives. Negatives, first off, that we've lost so many really good people, which has been heartbreaking. Lots of my ex-colleagues and industry peers have moved sectors just for safety of income. But from a positive point of view, it has given us the shake up. I think, again, with a kind of sales head on, the client journey has changed massively, and even that's become a lot more virtual. So you've really got to step up your game online and be visible and be proving that you're the right option, because they will have researched a lot before they even pick up the phone and contact you. So that kind of a way of working has changed, and I don't think we'll go back very quickly to before. Relationships, I think, between businesses within the industry and B2B, so our kind of relationships with our clients, has changed. I think it's become quite a lot more personal. I've run my business on WhatsApp and voice notes, and I would never have, last year, if you'd said, would you WhatsApp a client, I'd be like, oh no, I'm much too formal for that. Whereas it just feels a lot, we all feel a lot closer, I think, because we've all gone through massive tough times together. In terms of mental health, I think we're all going to need, I think it will take everybody about another year to wrap our heads around what's gone on, because nobody's actually had time to be like, what a year it's been, actually think about it, because we're just constantly pivoting and trying to survive. So I think that'll take time. It's a bit like when you have a baby, you say your body takes 9 months to change, and then it takes another 9 months to get back to normal again. Probably more than that, to be fair. But so I think we've had a horrendous yeah, I know, 2.5 years.
4 years later.
Yeah. But I think it's been a difficult year, and I think it will take another year for us to all wrap our heads around it and work out what the hell's going on.
Yeah, that's really true. And that brings it to that confidence thing as well, doesn't it? Because effectively what an awful lot, and we talk about this a lot in mental health and wellbeing circles, effectively what an awful lot of us in our industry have experienced over the last 9-10 months is trauma. Many traumas, trauma after trauma after trauma after trauma. And that, for your own perspective, for your own physical, psychological, and also your physiological well-being as well. It takes a long time for you to recover from that and start to regain that kind of confidence in your abilities as well, particularly when if anybody who's been on furlough or have lost their job and have not been doing the stuff that they love and they're passionate about for a long time, you can lose your confidence in your own abilities. So we just need to go gentle on ourselves for a while, don't we? Kind of say, Rita, and Charlie, you're both nodding at me. So I'm going to go to Charlie first. I'm going to finish off with Rita.
Yeah, I think obviously I'm working closely with both clients and staff in the agency, and mental health and well-being is a big part of what I wanted to sort of ingrain in everything that I do. So I think for me, the bottom line is, building that personal relationship with the team so that they've got confidence in me and my ability to, get them work, and they'll become more reliable for me. And invest in this time in them and getting to know them, what they enjoy doing and things like that, seeing them as a person, not just a freelancer. I think they're ultimately respecting me more, and I'm getting more out of them because I'm showing them the respect that they deserve. And I think that's a big part of it, just building relationships.
We've done research this year asking people on those points as well, about what would they like to see from their employer, their boss, their contractor as a freelancer, that kind of thing. And exactly what you've just said there is respect, openness, honesty, just really just taking care, getting to know me as a person kind of stuff. You see that time and time again comes up, just kind of appreciate me as a person, as a human being, not just a number.
And I enjoy that more. I enjoy, you know, getting to know people. Otherwise, I'm just sat here working on my own. I want to build a relationship with them and get to know them. And as part of our sort of initial interview, we do it on a video call so we can see them as face to face as possible, asking them, you know, we go through all their experience, but we also talk about what they enjoy doing in their free time. And I find that I've got a lot in common with them, you know, through running or snowboarding or whatever. And it's really nice. It's like having a big extended like team and family. It's lovely.
Yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? Who knew that you might have things in common with the people you work with outside of events? Yeah. Rita, lovely. What you?
Very similar to Charlie. Obviously, for us and the kind of work we do, we've pretty much been shut down since March. So people who are coming back to work, and we've got, you know, some Christmas work that where the confidence is, we're obviously then delivering the work. We've got to be incredibly gentle with them, because actually a lot of people have forgotten how to work, or they just don't have confidence in their own abilities. So the number of things that you would generally go, oh my God, you know, this is frustrating. Actually, you can't be frustrated, because it's not their fault. They've just out of habit. And actually, even counting, you suddenly go, well, did I count that right? So you just actually supporting in their work is one thing. Supporting, sort of talking to them about family, how they've coped, is another thing. So actually, I find myself even more familiar with my team. And, you know, less, you know, I've never been a boss woman anyway, but more so talking to them about how they're coping just in general life. But also I'm finding that I'm doing the same thing with my customers and my clients as well, because actually they want to feel the same level of confidence, because everyone's, you know, you're right, it's trauma. Everyone's lost absolute confidence in what they do, what the world that they understand, because, you know, whether it's hybrid, virtual, everything else has been piled up on us so quickly that we've just had to, we're almost like dealing with new things every day, and it's peeling an onion and suddenly something else pops out. And that's, you know, for me, it's just, you know, almost dealing with everyone like, you know, humans, to say, you know, rather than having my work face on and having my home face on, it's the same face across everyone. And actually that's working for us as a business, but also it means that it takes all the, you know, that disguise off and makes you a real person, to be able to deliver your services next year. And I think that's going to be important, because it's the relationships that will matter more in terms of whether you're going to be successful.
Yeah, it's that bringing your whole self to work stuff that you'll hear if you attend enough mental health and wellbeing events. You will hear this all the time being talked about, that bringing your whole self to work, but the ability to be able to be yourself at work as well as play. So it's not so much, it's not having to put a game face on or pretend that you're anything that you're not. Presenteeism is a massive increasing problem, bigger problem than absenteeism. And presenteeism, for anybody who doesn't understand that, is basically people going to work who are poorly and probably should be resting. And even people that have got cold, there's big debates about people with cold and flus and viruses and stuff now. People are starting to think differently about, you know, is it a good thing if you've got a cold to go into work and give it to all of your work colleagues, kind of stuff. Probably now, this year has probably taught us that, you know, it's probably not actually a very nice thing to do, but that's how we've worked for so long in terms of that game face and doing things when he's... Presenteeism is a massive, bigger problem in the virtual world, apparently, because it's much easier for you to pretend that you're feeling fine when actually you're incredibly poorly. So I always like it when it gets brought up, Rita, in terms of that being your whole self is really important. We've got a couple of questions from the audience, but we've got a quick last poll for the audience here. And this question is, do you think that the industry will be changed for the better as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic? So just a yes, no, or not sure for that one.
Ooh, if you can that's a juicy poll, isn't it?
That is a beauty poll.
That's the question everybody wants to know.
Yeah. Let's see what the answer comes in from that. Let's see if it comes up on the screen, or Arjun can jump on and tell us what those percentages are again for that. But yeah, it's interesting times, isn't it? Definitely interesting times.
It just is so shocking looking back at it. I mean, within, like you said, Rita, within hours. I was talking to somebody the other day who within 2 hours lost like £3 million worth of business, just dropped out.
Ooh.
How do you recover from that when you just have to keep pivoting all the time? Like, you haven't stopped to be able to process that.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah, it's hard. Arjun, have you got those percentages for us?
Yeah, I've got them. So 57% of the thing, people think that yes, it will change for the better. Yeah. And 43% are not sure.
43% not sure.
Yeah.
So
does that mean nobody says
no?
That's good.
Interesting.
That's
Everyone's saying yes or not sure. So that's really interesting. Thanks for sharing, Arjun. Thank you. Let's take it on to those two. That's a really interesting answer. I thought it'd be 50-50 yes and no. I didn't realise that nobody would put no. Okay. So in terms of the two questions that we've got, we touched on this a little bit. I'll ask them both together. So ladies, do you think that event professionals will now be respected rather than taken for granted? And then do you think that the new sense of work-life balance is here to stay?
I hope so, to both of those.
Yeah.
I really hope so. I think in terms of event professionals, I think absolutely there should be this newfound respect, and they should be treated a lot better. And I think the pandemic has definitely opened people's eyes to health and well-being a lot more. And I think because it has affected people either directly or indirectly, it's affected everyone globally. So yeah, I definitely would like to think so on that one.
Lovely, perfect. Rita, what's thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would definitely say that I would love to be respected more as an event professional. I think that some of the work that the events media has done on raising our profile will certainly help. Unfortunately, the government not acknowledging us has maybe, created a bit of problem because we're almost this unseen industry. But I think in the next few months, we will be much more visible. I've already noticed that my local council is acknowledging the events industry. So yeah, there will be, I think, as we open up, there'll be a movement of events have started up, and actually the world will feel different when we open up again. In terms of work-life balance, I think everyone will have, feels a little bit different, and people respect. I hope that people respect their health and well-being a lot more. Most people don't take their health and well-being for granted like we did. It's really 90s to do that, but we kept on running that way. And I do hope that we step back when actually we acknowledge that we're not feeling great and stop for a little while.
Definitely. And Kate, what your thoughts on?
I think in terms of respect, interesting that you pointed out a little bit of the barrier, Rita, between us and the government, the rest of the world. And I think obviously that barrier has been really difficult to deal with, and there's been some incredible people in our industry trying to knock it down. But I also feel like it's kind of encouraged respect for each other within the industry. We're suddenly so close, and like I've went for a play day with a friend the other day to the park, socially distanced, and she said, "Oh, I've got a friend who's in the event industry as well." And I was like, "Oh, what does she do? Oh, like we're all in this together." It's suddenly become like a really close club, and I think the respect for each other and our businesses and businesses that aren't surviving, we really feel for them, perhaps more so than we would have done before. In terms of work-life balance, I think nobody's going to forget this year in a hurry, and everybody at the moment, employers are being really pushed to have a bit more respect for work-life balance in the short term. And I think whilst that might peter off in several years' time, I think the employees won't forget it, and they'll push for it, and perhaps stand up for themselves a little bit more and say, actually, if you're not going to give me what I want, I'm going to move on, because life is precious.
Which brings us on nicely to this last question. So I want to ask this, but ladies, because we're running out of time, so I'm going to say, can you give me a yes, no, maybe answer to this question? Do you think that employers will now have a better understanding, empathy for burnout? Rita?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Kate?
Yes.
And Charlie?
Yes.
And the
Yes,
same.
with my fingers crossed.
Yeah,
me too.
I've got my fingers crossed underneath. I'm sat on my fingers, sat on my crossed fingers, kind of stuff. Yes. So brilliant. What a fantastic session, ladies. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, for your contributions, for your thought leadership. Amazing as I knew it would do. So thank you so much for that. We're just going to bring up that last poll in terms of people's thoughts for the session. So if people can just give a little rating there for us and submit that'd be great. Thank you so much. We have recorded all of the sessions for this morning, so we'll be making them available next week. We just need to download those and brand them all up. So you will be able to watch these sessions back and share them with your colleagues, is what we ask them to watch them as well. We've had some fantastic thought leadership and insights this morning and sharing, so do share that. That's it for this month's edition of EventWell Talks, our new look. Huge thanks again to our event sponsors, Glisser. I'm going to say a massive thank you to Eventologists as well, who are actually one of our fundraising partners and sponsors there. So thank you to Rita for everything that she's doing in terms of supporting the work of EventWell this year. Awesome. We are going to finish off. There is another TED Talk for you to finish off with. So you can either, if you want to go and listen to that one, it's with a lady called Amy Edmondson. She's a leadership expert and actually follows on quite nicely from that last question in terms of employers. And so this last TED Talk session over in the tea room, so your last tea with Ted, is all about how to lead in a crisis. But for now, thanks for joining us. We'll hope to see you next month on the 17th of December for our next edition of EventWell Talks. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Bye.